Hello everyone. So since the last time I made a video, my subscriber count has nearly doubled. And I know it's a small channel, but that's still pretty impressive. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know how it happened, but I'm grateful. So to all my returning subscribers, it's so good to see you guys again and to be posting a video because I know it's been a while. And to all my new subscribers, hey, welcome to the channel. I've been sick for the last few weeks. And it's really just kind of taken the wind out of my sails. I've tried to make videos a few times and I kept losing my voice. And so I tried to explain this to my mom and she didn't get the reference. So it was kind of funny, but I was telling her that basically it was like trying to make a video when you have the voice of Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, because that's about what I sounded like for, a pretty good long while. Also, for those of you who don't know, for those of you who are new, I am pregnant right now. That's why I'm kind of a little bit out of sorts. And also I have pregnancy RLS, which is a type of pregnancy related insomnia. So it's the middle of the night. I'm dressed in my PJs. I was trying to sleep. I kind of knew it wasn't going to work, but I tried. And so here I am. I just soaked my feet in some warm water to kind of get them to stop tingling and itching. And I drank some hot tea because I keep losing my voice, and I'm gonna try and make a video because I haven't posted a video in way too long and I've been too sick to do it, and that's life. But I did want to do that, and I've been thinking about the video I wanted to post because I had originally planned to do one kind of video, and it was a trans topic kind of video, how I'm dealing with autoandrophilia, and I've been working on that, which I've been filming it in little 3-minute long segments because then my voice would start going all over the place, and it was like, okay, I need to stop for a little while and collect myself. So I've got that. It's partially done, but it's complicated. It's I want to make sure that I say everything correctly because it's a delicate subject. And also, I kind of get this suspicion that most of the new subscribers who've come to my channel came here because of this video right here, which is my most popular video to date by far. I've had a lot of comments from a lot of people on that video and a lot of my other videos, and I've just been thinking about that a lot, like a lot of the new subscribers, a lot of the new comments, a lot of the new people who've kind of come to the channel. And I want to make a video for you guys because I'm on a transgender kick because it's a sexually related subject. I have my own transgender kinds of issues. And so I'm learning about me, and I'm also learning about other people. It's been fascinating, and it's a very nuanced topic with there's a lot of very hotly debated stuff happening in the trans community right now, which makes it interesting. But that's not the only stuff I do. That's not the only videos I've ever made. And again, I kind of get the impression that a lot of the newcomers are not entirely focused on that topic. So I wanted to talk about something else just to kind of switch things up a little bit, which has been difficult because every time I try to make a video, I lose my voice quickly. Do you want to sit on my lap? You can do that if you want. There you go. One of the things that I've noticed a lot is that a lot of people have a lot of ideas about what strip clubs are. And I mean, after all, this is my most popular video. A lot of people have ideas about what strip clubs are and what strippers are as people, or not as people, because I kind of get the impression that a lot of these people who are commenting along certain avenues of thought, they tend to think that exotic dancers aren't really human. I'm pretty sure they think we're made out of plastic or something. And I mean, one thing to be aware of is the fact that I was an exotic dancer for 8 years, but then I retired because I had a family and I had kids. And it's very difficult to balance a job and kids, especially kids plural. And I've got 4, and they're all quite young. And so I tried getting a job at the Walmart for a while, like the Walmart down the road. I loved it. I loved it. I loved the work. I loved my coworkers. I loved coming into work. I loved staying at work. I tried to stay late at work a lot whenever I had the chance. I loved my job. It was just too difficult to balance it with my family life. There were too many problems, and eventually it just got to be too much. There were other problems too. My husband had a brain tumor. It was a whole thing. Yeah, it was just a thing, you know, it was a brain tumor. Shit happens. I don't think people actually take the time to take into consideration that this video right here, it happened 4 years ago. There's been a lot that's gone on since then. And so, you know, that's the thing to maybe be a little bit aware of. But I also get the impression that for a lot of people, you know, once a stripper, always a stripper. There's been that kind of commentary. And to a certain extent, that is true. I think I've heard a few people commenting that once you get into the business, there's a part of you that never leaves. And that's been my experience in my own life. I went into the business. I spent many years in the business. Parts of me never left the business. I still pole dance whenever I can. Granted, I'm big, fat, and pregnant and awkward right now, so that's not happening. But there's a certain awareness of my appearance that has become just very habitual for me. I don't necessarily try to look pretty. I know a lot of women, the focus becomes on looking beautiful. For me, a lot of it was about fitness and maintaining a certain level of fitness. There was just, if you spend years and years of your life around people who are very, very physically fit, like very athletic, you kind of begin to think of that as being normal. And one of the things that I kind of get culture shock from every once in a while is every once in a while I pull my head out of the sand and I look around and everyone around me is obese. And it's just kind of weird to me because I'm used to being in this kind of cloistered environment with all these women who are all trying as hard as they can to look as beautiful and physically fit as possible so that they can get money. When it becomes a matter of professional interest, all of a sudden it's like you gotta put that little extra bit of effort in. And I'm just used to that being, that's my normal. And so to a certain extent, that's been the part of me that never left the club. Everything else is kind of worn down over time and kind of softened out. But for me, the level of fitness that I expect from myself, it's kind of like that standard is still there. Yes, I'm old. Yes, I'm wrinkly. Yes, parts of me are sagging in ways that I never wanted to see parts of me sagging. You know, that's not so fun. But there's still this expectation that I should be at a certain level of fitness and physical mobility. And honestly, that's one of the things that I'm really grateful for. The job itself, the industry, was extremely good for me. And I know there are a lot of people who that has not been the case for. And that's one of the tricky things. Like, I'd love to recommend to young women who are like, oh, you know, I think I want to be a stripper. It's like, yeah, it's a great time. Everything's wonderful. I really loved it. It was a great time for me. It was wonderful for me. I loved it. It was good for me. I've seen way, way, way too many young women come into strip clubs and proceed to utterly fuck their lives up. And it's like, I don't know if I can really recommend the strip club to people because of that. For someone in my shoes, for someone in my situation with my mindset, it is a wonderful place to be. It is pure magic. Strip clubs are my little slice of heaven on earth. For other people, you know, who aren't like me, I'm not sure it's the most beneficial thing. And I can't necessarily recommend it. And I understand there are a lot of people going to look at that and say, oh, well, so you think you're special. And it's like, no, I think I'm weird. I think I'm different. I think there's a lot of things that were going on in my life that made me extraordinarily different. And in many ways, ideally suited to a strip club environment that aren't necessarily at play in other young women's lives. And so, you know, that's a thing to be aware of. I do see those things at play in other young women's lives, though. Sometimes it's not like I'm the only woman who's ever been like this. It's just, I've seen a lot where I've seen a lot of girls, and usually it's drugs. They get into the strip club and they either get hung up on some sort of drug or alcohol problem, or they end up dating really bad men. Or, you know, honestly, one thing that happens a lot that I didn't have a problem with because I'm an autoandrophile, a lot of women who come into strip clubs and end up working in strip clubs, they develop this like extreme bitterness about men. Like, oh, men are bad, men are the enemy, men are the cause of all these problems, men are horrible and terrible. And I mean, yeah, a lot of men dehumanize you in a strip club. And it wasn't a problem for me because I was so used to being dehumanized all the time by everyone around me anyway. It was kind of like, okay, well, look, it's more people who are just waiting in line to dehumanize me. Well, must be a Tuesday then. As opposed to a lot of women who go into a strip club and they're just not quite prepared to get hit in the face with that. And so there are a lot of things going on there. But I kind of wanted to talk about the sort of people who end up in strip clubs, because some people kind of understand this and some people really clearly don't. I think a lot of guys, especially manosphere guys, and I mean, I saw a lot of comments by guys where it's like, you must be in the manosphere. Yeah, you must be either red pill or black pill, probably an incel. You can usually tell when a guy doesn't think of women as being human beings. It's like, oh, must be an incel. Because you can't have a relationship, like a healthy, stable, especially long-lasting relationship with another human being, if you can't actually acknowledge the fact that they're, you know, a human being. So that was an interesting thing to observe. Yeah, I've seen a lot of kind of red pill guys who have this idea that, and this is something that goes back to like Rollo Tomassi and his whole, like, how did he always say it? It's like, attention is the coin of the realm in girl world. That's great for some girls. For other girls, for girls who aren't me, you know, there are those girls in the world, but I don't think he fully understands women as well as I think he wants to. I think he understands certain types of women, and there are certainly a lot of those types of women. But the more I've looked at it, the more I've thought about it, the more I've read about it, it's like, yeah, there are all these other women in the world who don't fit into that neat little box. And one of the things I really struggled with when I did, like, because I did a bunch of reviews of Rollo Tomassi's books, a lot of guys, whenever I'd read something and be like, yeah, this doesn't quite fit me, and I don't know why, but it just doesn't really apply to me at all. A lot of guys would then tell me that I was just not aware of it fitting me. Like, yeah, it's totally fitting you. You're just, I guess, too dumb or too naive or too oblivious of your own self and your own mechanical workings up here to be aware of the way that you fit into this little mold. That was the front door falling open because it's windy. Very odd sound. Anyway, yeah, I get a lot of talks like that from like total strangers who don't know jack shit about me. Like, oh, you don't realize that you have this going on in your life, but you totally have this going on in your life because vagina means that you absolutely have to have this. The truth is that women don't always fit into that neat little cookie cutter. There's a lot of things that can happen to a human being that can make them not fit into a neat little box. And that's the reason that psychology is like an entire field of study instead of like one textbook that you get in college that you then read. And then it's like, congratulations, you know everything there is to know about human psychology. Human beings are a little more complicated than that. Even human beings with vaginas. I know there are a lot of guys out there who think that we're not quite human, but we are, which means that we're complex and not quite so easy to boil down into these nice, simple little concepts and ideas like, oh, well, all women want attention. The truth was, I didn't go into the strip club for attention. And a lot of guys, you know, even when I was working in the strip club, guys were always telling me, oh, you came here for attention, right? You came here for attention. You came here so that you could feel sexy. You came here for money. And honestly, none of the above was entirely true or even close to true. The money was, I didn't expect to actually make money when I started working as an exotic dancer. I didn't think I was that pretty. I mean, I knew I was, it's really funny because I knew I was different. And when I say different, I mean, I grew up in a small town. It was very rural. It was very isolated geographically. And so I knew, like, on an individual case by case basis that I was prettier than the girls around me. And I got mistreated a lot by the girls in my hometown because I was pretty. But it never quite clicked into place for me what was happening. Like, I'm not particularly socially astute. And so, and women, this is something, I want to make a video about this. I want to talk about intrasexual competition among women, because men have a very straightforward way of approaching intrasexual competition. And I love the way men handle intrasexual competition. That's one of the reasons I wish I was a man. It would be so straightforward. Among women, well, actually, there are still sneaky men in this world, but that's a different matter. Among women, it's all about being sneaky. Like, it's always about sneakiness. It's always about being subtle. It's always about undermining the other women around you. And there's so many things to say about that. Because on the one hand, I hate using terms like pretty privilege, because people are stupid about that. Like, they think that being pretty makes you just automatically have this wonderful, easy life, and like that flowers spring up on the ground wherever you step your feet down, and that everything is perfect and sunshine and rainbows, and there's never a cloud in the sky because you're pretty, so people just hand you everything that you want for free. You don't have to actually work for anything. And in some ways, that's kind of true, because I mean, I was an exotic dancer. I made my money off of being pretty for 8 years. I saw the way people interacted with me. I'm not entirely socially oblivious, just mostly socially oblivious. And so I saw the way people responded to me. And there's definitely ways that people will treat other individuals differently when they find them to be attractive, male or female, it doesn't matter. However, there are also very negative ways that people will interact with you when they think that you're attractive. And people don't realize that. Like, being beautiful, being sexually attractive, whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter, is a very double-edged sword. And so I don't like to use terms like pretty privilege, because it's like, well, yeah, you're pretty and you're going to have these things that are good happening to you, but at the same time, you're going to have all this shit coming into your life that you would never have had to deal with otherwise. And it's really hard to complain about that shit, because everybody knows that this shit that's happening to you right now is happening to you because you're sexy. And that's kind of your fault somehow. So, I mean, that was a problem for me long before I became an exotic dancer. I remember being, early teens, preteen, and having to deal with that and not understanding it. Like, prepubescent, it's like, why are people treating me so strange? Early teens, when you're in a very conservative town where you're not allowed to date because your family's conservative, and they're like, well, you can't date until you turn 18. It's like, well, okay, cool. I don't like boys anyway, so that's awesome. I'll just ignore them because I've got other things on my life that I need to take care of. It's really weird when you're just completely oblivious to that whole sexual side of humanity, and all these people start acting weird around you, and there's like no one to interpret for you and say, hey, everyone around you is going through puberty. And so that's the reason that everyone's suddenly acting like you owe them money. It's not money that they think you owe them, but they definitely think you owe them something. Meanwhile, I'm a late bloomer, and I'm trying to stay alive because my childhood was fucked up and kind of violent, and I'm preoccupied with putting one foot in the front of the other, surviving the day. That's my goal. I'm very focused. I'm surviving. I'm in survival mode. I'm getting through this day. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, some really not good things happen, but you know what? I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. I'm getting through this. I'm going to stay alive through today, and after today, I'm going to have to survive tomorrow, and I'm going to get through that too. And it's rough, and I'm doing it. And then, other people and their puberty and their sex and their sexuality and their feelings. And I'm just kind of like, what the fuck is wrong with people? Like, we hit like 13 and all of a sudden everyone around me went completely fucking insane. And I'm the only person here who has even an ounce of sanity left. All the rest of you, you're all crazy. And I don't know why you're all obsessed with sex. Weirdly enough, other people's bizarre sexual behaviors and me trying to understand all their bizarre sexual behaviors, which were really inexplicable when I was like completely turned off from my own body, like bad things were happening to my body. The less I could feel what was happening to my body, the better. And so I just was as dissociated as I could possibly be. And all these other people are acting weird and sexual, and I can't understand anything that's motivating them. It's all just bizarre. And so I start really paying attention to it.
Fast forward 20 years, and now I have a YouTube channel where I talk about sex stuff all the time.
Because people are strange, and I'm trying to understand them so that I can normal. Like, normal is an activity, and I'm trying to normal with everyone else, and I'm trying to do normal. And, you know, I've told stories about my first boyfriend, and people are always like, you're such a horrible person, because I got into this relationship with this guy, and I wasn't remotely attracted to him in any way, shape, or form. But he was a very normal guy, and he wanted to date me, and he was very not subtle about that, you know, sending me dick pics and shit. And I'm sitting there thinking, I only know 9 men, because it's a very small, very rural, very geographically isolated town. It's not like I can drive down the road and find another town with other men in it. This is it. There are 9 men. And one of them is a very normal guy who's close to my age, which some of them were old enough to be my grandfather. There was one man who was old enough to be my grandfather who kept on trying to get me to sleep with him. And when I say old enough to be my grandfather, I mean he was literally numerically 3 times my age. I was 19, he was 59. And he's trying to get me to sleep with him. And I keep telling him, look, I'm a virgin. I'm going to do that whole virgin till marriage thing. I'm really not interested. You know, I'm flattered, but go away. And he wouldn't leave me alone. So then I had to start taking steps to avoid this old guy. Like, when I say I only knew 8 men, I knew, you know, 8 men across the entire spectrum of age range and marital status. And anyway, there was this one guy who's online sending me dick pics, and he's about my age. And it's like, okay, this is normal. Like, this is the option that I have. This is the only option that I currently have. And this is normal. So if I want to if I want to figure out how to do normal, I'm going to go out on a date with this guy, and I'm going to try to act normal, because that's what normal people do, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to do normal. Because normal is an activity, right? Like, it's a performance. You do it, right? So I go on this date with this guy, and we end up dating for, I don't know, it felt like forever. It felt like an eternity, but it was probably closer to a month. And I just got increasingly more unhappy as I'm dating him. Because, I mean, we started having sex because that's what's normal. That's what people expect. And so I was having sex with this guy that I had absolutely no attraction to whatsoever. Physical, mental, emotional, no attachment to. And I had been told in my very conservative church, in my small, rural, geographically isolated town, that when you start having sex with someone, you start feeling all these emotions. And so you should really hold off on sex until marriage, because once you start having a sexual relationship with someone, all these emotions get involved and you get really attached to them. And if it's a bad setup for you, a bad relationship for you, it can be really difficult to leave that relationship once sex gets into the mix, which honestly is not entirely bad advice, really. But, so I was having sex with him, and I was expecting that at any point, all these emotions were going to start flaring up, and maybe I'd start to feel a little bit more attached to him, because that's normal, right? And I was trying really hard to do normal. Instead, I started feeling so repulsed by him that I would have happily gnawed my own arm off just to get the hell away from him. Meanwhile, he is getting more and more and more attached to me, and so he's invading my life and my personal space more and more and more. He's showing up at my workplace where I'm trying to hang out with my coworkers who, I tend to gravitate toward male companionship. So there was a foreign exchange student who was working at my workplace, and he seemed like a nice guy, and I was trying to make friends with him, and he was friendly. And then all of a sudden, one day, out of the blue, my boyfriend shows up and starts glaring daggers at this guy and scaring him off. And it's like, dude, this is the only coworker I have who's actually willing to talk to me. Like, the women here hate my guts, and clearly, obviously, very much just from the expression of disgust on their faces when they've seen me around, they wish I was dead, and this is the only human being that I know who doesn't. And now you've scared him away. And also, on that note, how the fuck did you figure out where I work anyway, and why the fuck did you show up while I was in the middle of a shift? So, like, I was miserable. I was so unhappy, and I didn't understand why. I could not figure it out. It's like, I'm doing all the things you're supposed to do. I swear I'm doing it as hard as I can. I'm even having sex with the guy, which you're not supposed to do until you get married, but I'm having sex with him because that's normal. That's what normal is. And nothing's happening. What's wrong? I don't understand. I'm very confused. And so a lot of men have, come and told me that I'm a horrible person for, abusing this poor young man and taking advantage of him and whatever. I think any guy who opens with a dick pic probably deserves whatever he gets, honestly, but that's just me. No, eventually I broke up with him because I couldn't stand to be around him, and I didn't understand why. It was a very innocent, very ignorant mistake by a very, very painfully over-sheltered young person. And I'm not feeling too guilty about it at this point because I just didn't know any better, and I didn't have any way of knowing any better. Like, in retrospect, I just look at it and it's like, yeah, how the fuck was I supposed to know that wasn't going to work out? Like, I had people all around me constantly telling me that I was being too picky because I didn't like any of the 9 men that were available for me to date. I don't know, that one over there is married, that one's old enough to be my dad, that one's old enough to be my grandpa. How am I supposed to pick one of these? Like, and so then, I turned 21, and there is no dating market. I'm in the middle of the dating desert. I can't find anyone that I'm attracted to. I can't find anyone to pair up with. And at this point, I'm looking at it and thinking, I want to get married. I want to have a family. When I was like 13 or 14, it kind of dawned on me that people like me don't get married. We don't have families. At that point, I was so fucked up and my life was so fucked up. It's like, you know what? Let's be honest. People like you don't get to live a normal life. Not after the things you've been through. So I want you to be really realistic about your prospects with the whole getting married, having a family, having that white picket fence. Be realistic here. Is that going to happen for someone like you? Because look what's happened to you. Look what you've been through. Look what you've survived and walked away from. People like you don't get to have the marriage, the kids, the white picket fence. Be realistic. So, I try not to lie to myself. And I looked at it, was like, okay, women have a limited fertility window. It's not great. So that's something to be aware of. How am I supposed to find a partner? How am I supposed to find a mate? I tried college. That didn't work. I tried joining the military because I thought, well, at least the military will ship me somewhere else, right? But my body was so fucked up from the things that had happened to me as a kid, there was no way the military was going to take me. So that was a no-go too. I turned 21. I had no interest whatsoever in drinking alcohol. But bars in my hometown were pretty much the only place that people went to socialize, bars and churches. And I mean, God, I was originally going to make this video just about the churches themselves, because that's a whole video in and of itself. In fact, I could probably make several videos about my experience with churches in my hometown. And I do need to make a video about that, because I don't hate Christians and I don't hate Christianity. I'm sending my kids to a private Christian school because I want them to have that good, solid foundation of morals and ethics and just that mindset. But I can't be a Christian after the things I've seen. It was always this threat of hell that was like looming over me. It was like there was so much control. And this goes back to the whole women in intrasexual competition. The women, the girls my age in my church that I knew, which again, let's be perfectly honest, you don't have to be a beauty queen to look way prettier than 99% of the women in my hometown. So anywhere else in the country, are you a 6? Okay, in my hometown, that makes you a 10. Congratulations. It's all wonderful until you look around and realize that there aren't any attractive men in my hometown either. A lot of the girls in my church just, you know, a lot of people assumed that I was being really sexually indecent in all sorts of ways before I was even really aware that sex was a thing. There were a lot of rumors about me in my hometown, which is another reason I don't ever want to go back to my hometown. There are still rumors to this day about me in my hometown. I used to joke that like half the guys in my hometown said they'd had sex with me and the other half said they would never have sex with me because, you know, I was carrying STDs and shit. Both of which are rumors that were started by women in my hometown. Well, a lot of the guys who were claiming to have sex with me, those were their own rumors. Like I had guys that I wouldn't have touched with a fucking cattle prod, and they were going around saying all sorts of stuff about me, and people believed it because, you know, folks in my hometown weren't necessarily known for their towering intellectual abilities. Like, if you're in the ass end of nowhere and it's really, really rural and, you know, there were a lot of farmers, they weren't dumb people necessarily, but it's a different kind of world. It's a different world. And so, you know, if you're somebody who likes thinking, that's something you should keep to yourself. I really hated it there. I really hated growing up there. I hated my childhood. And my early adulthood was really rocky up until the point that I got to the strip club. Because at 21, I wanted to hang out in a bar because the churches weren't working for me. And I don't drink. So what was I going to do? It's like, well, I'll get a job at a bar. That'll force me to go into the bar. And I'll be around people and I'll be socializing on a daily basis. And, you know, it's better than staying at home plotting out the rest of my life as a spinster, because that's where I'm at right now. Those are my prospects. And I kind of don't want to be a spinster for the rest of my life. At the very least, I want to try to build something better for myself. I really do need to figure out this dating thing and this relationship thing probably now. So I need to figure this out. I need to go to a bar. I need to be around lots of people, and I need to figure out the sex thing. It wasn't just the sex thing I needed to figure out. I needed to figure out the social thing. I needed to figure out a lot of things. Like, if you go through your entire childhood just putting one foot in front of the other and staying alive, you get really, really good at staying alive, but you don't get good at anything else. And so socially, and I mean, I've talked with my husband about this because a lot of people online have commented they think I might be autistic. And it's like, well, I mean, I have the social skills of a carrot. And so, I mean, it's entirely possible that I'm autistic because, I mean, autism does affect a person's social skills. I'm not saying people who are autistic have the social skills of a carrot. I'm saying that I have the social skills of a carrot, which could be an autistic trait, or it could be, you know, the fact that I just never got a chance to develop socially when I was young, because I didn't. And so I kind of had to figure it all out when I hit adulthood, which is way later than most people should. So it was sickeningly embarrassing and just painful. It was a really painful process coming into a strip club and trying to learn normal. Like, that was the whole goal. That was the mission. You go into the strip club, you get a job as a dancer, because that way you have to come in because, you know, it's a job that you're expected to come into work. And so you kind of have to be there. And in the process, you learn how to normal as much as you can, because you're around people, you're talking to people, you have to talk to people, you have to figure out normal. I didn't think about making money. I didn't expect to make money. I knew I was sort of semi-pretty because, again, rural town, a 6 in any other part of the country, suddenly a 10 over there. And so, I mean, I came in and I remember my first night, like, I talked about it, like coming over to my friend's house after work because he was awake at night. He was a night owl, and I called him up. I was like, can I come over? He was like, yeah, sure. I come over with this grocery bag full of cash, and I dumped it out in his living room floor. And I'm looking at it, and I just looked at him. I was like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I'm excited. This is more than a paycheck on the ambulance. This is an entire paycheck plus some extra on the ambulance where I was working full time. This is fantastic. I had a hell of a lot more fun earning an entire paycheck in one night at a strip club than I ever had working on an ambulance. You know, being responsible, being an upstanding member of society. You know, screw that. You know, rural ambulance, you spend your days sitting around waiting for the beeper to go off so that you actually have something to do. Rural ambulance in my home, like my area where I grew up, I would go for an entire week at a time without seeing another living human being. And then I'd drive home because I was in the next town over working on the ambulance. So I'd drive home and I'd see my parents, who I don't get along with all that well sometimes, most of the time. And so we wouldn't be getting along well. We'd be kind of clashing, and there'd be a lot of tension. And then finally, at the end of the weekend, I'd be like, screw this, I'm going back to work. I'd drive back to my town, spend the entire week not seeing another human being. At the end of the week, I'd look at it, I was like, well, do I want to go back home and clash with my parents some more? Or do I want to just hang out here and eat ramen and just hope that maybe there's a call that I can attend? Like, I'd already been told that if there was a call and I wasn't working that day, I could still tag along on the run just to get some experience under my belt, because after a year of working on the ambulance, I was still just as green as when I got hired. Screw all that. Screw all that. This strip club thing seems like it's really working out for me. I'll just do this. See where it goes. You know, embarrass myself to the point of wishing I could die just trying to figure out how to talk to people at a bar. How do you have a conversation with someone? How do you normal? How do you give someone the impression when you're talking with them that you're not some sort of weirdo? How do you do that? You practice night after night after night after night. And so I would go and I would start talking with some guy at the bar, and at some point I'd say something wrong or do something wrong, and I could tell just from his body language that I had fucked up, and I'd kind of politely excuse myself, and I'd go to the next guy and be like, hi, can I sit with you? Can I talk with you? Look, I'm in a bikini. I've got tits hanging out to here. Like, you know, of course you want to talk to me, right? You know, practice, just practice. And I was ashamed, and I was embarrassed, and it was awkward, and it wasn't fun, but I got better over time, and I built a better facade around myself. Granted, that facade is cracked as hell right now because I've been doing the stay-at-home mom thing for like the last 8 years. It was so amazing working at Walmart for a little while because it was like, oh my God, I get to be around adults. Oh my God, I get to socialize with people. Oh my God, I've been missing this so bad. But then, you know, then it didn't work out. So I kind of went back home, and I don't see people who are over the age of 10 anymore. And so that whole socializing thing, I'm really rusty on it. And everybody's like, well, everybody's rusty because of COVID. And I'm like, okay, I want you to take COVID and I want you to multiply that by about 4, and that's where I'm at right now. Like, you do realize there's a cumulative effect too. When I say multiply it by 4, I don't mean just go through COVID, then go through COVID again, then go through COVID again and again. I mean COVID, but it goes on for years and years and years, and you're still in quarantine, and you just don't know how to talk to human beings anymore. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So I'm always really kind of overly sensitive about it. It's like, I don't know how to talk to people anymore because I'm all alone. I don't have a support network. I don't have a social life. I don't really have friends. Yeah. And then my husband had a brain tumor for half a decade, so I didn't really have him either. So social isolation, whatever you've known or experienced of social isolation in your life, I want you to just picture that in your mind, and then imagine that being a multi-year issue for me at this point. So yeah, I did have temporarily some social skills. Like, I did actually know how to start a conversation with people and even be moderately charming and witty around people, you know, when I was doing it every day for a living and I stayed in practice. But it's not innate. It's not inherent to me. It's not something I learned as a child. It's something I had to learn as an adult. I had to teach myself how to act a performance of social skills because I never really had the opportunity to, you know, have a normal childhood. So, you know, where do you find a training ground for something like that? Well, I mean, if I could have closed my eyes and said, you know, dear God, please give me the ideal training ground so that I can learn social skills and I can kind of start to rebuild my broken life, and not to mention fix my very broken body, because my body, my health, physically, I was such a wreck after the things that happened to me as a kid. Like, I did not think that I would ever recover. But, you know, if I could have asked for the perfect environment to rebuild and become a healthy person, dude, a strip club. Like, I wasn't thinking along those lines. I didn't think it would be quite as beneficial to me as it ended up being, but it was perfect for me. You know, your job as an exotic dancer is to go and flirt with the customers. I needed that. I needed to play catch up in a game that everyone else knew how to play. I feel very blessed that my life took the path it took. I feel very proud that I was able to build the life I have right now. You know, the husband, the kids. We have a chain link fence. It's not a white picket fence, but you get the idea. I open the door and I let all of my children run out into the yard, even the toddler. And they're all out there playing. We've got some playground equipment. We've got a swing set. And, you know, we have a chicken coop that I built with my own damn 2 hands because I like building things. And, you know, it's full of chickens. Some of our chickens hatched some eggs this year. And so, like, the kids were playing with the little teeny baby chicks. I look outside and I think to myself that I live in paradise, and I do. I live in this beautiful, beautiful place that has so many of the things that I wanted for myself in my life. Like, if I could have written down a list of all the wonderful, wonderful dreamlike things that I could have asked for myself, it would have been this. I'm not going to pretend that it's been easy. Husband had a brain tumor for, you know, half a decade. Brain tumors are wicked. They fuck your life up. But this is the life I want to live. I have my complaints, definitely, but would I have chosen anything different for myself? And the answer to that question is absolutely not. People like me don't get to have this. People like me don't get to live this life. Anyway, I will slowly become more coherent as time passes and less sick, and I'll cough less. I hope you are all in good health, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day. And honestly, it's almost Christmas, so I probably will not post again before Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody, and I'll talk to you guys later.